Hello, everyone. Tonight's story follows Rosalind, a betrayed daughter reborn before her family erases her name, steals her inheritance, and leaves her to die alone. Because sometimes a second life is not given for forgiveness, but for justice, revenge, and the quiet return of everything stolen. I woke to the smell of rain on old stone and coffee so expensive it tasted almost medicinal. For a moment, I did not move. Morning light slid through the half-drawn curtains and touched the porcelain lamp. The silver photograph of my father and me. The unread books I had arranged to look more thoughtful than lonely. The sheets were warm. My hands, resting on the coverlet, were not thin enough for the bones to show through. That was the first impossible thing. In the hospital, my hands had become evidence of everything I had lost. Bruised by needles, too weak to hold a plastic cup. I remembered staring at them while a hospital television murmured about a charity gala I had once helped organize. Celeste had laughed beneath chandeliers. My grandmother's sapphire brooch pinned over her heart as if theft became inheritance when worn with confidence. Then I remembered dying. Death had not been dramatic. No thunder, no music. Just disinfectant. A thin blanket, the sour taste of medicine I could no longer afford regularly enough to save me, and a nurse with kind eyes whispering the last truth I would ever hear. My father had discovered the lie. Arthur Hargrove had found out that the embezzlement scandal was forged, that my sister and stepmother had destroyed me, that Dominic had helped them. Too ill to reverse my removal from the family register, he changed his will in secret and left everything to me. The estate, the shares, the foundation, the trust. I died before I could claim any of it. Celeste and Eleanor destroyed the will. My second impossible thing was the calendar on my desk. June 14th, 14 months before the day my name would be erased. I sat up slowly. The world did not blur. My heart did not burst. I did not scream or fall to the floor. I walked to the window and looked down over Hargrove House. The country estate spread across the hill like a beautiful, patient lie. The lawns were wet and silver. Staff moved between the service wing and the white marquee being raised for my father's 70th birthday weekend. Florists carried crates of roses. A catering boy slipped on the grass and was immediately scolded. I pressed my palm to the cold glass and laughed once, quietly. God had a cruel sense of timing, but at least he had taste. 14 months, not enough time to become merciful, more than enough time to become dangerous. A knock came at my door. "Miss Hargrove?" Hilda's voice, soft with age and discipline. "Your mother asked whether you'll be down for breakfast." My mother. Eleanor Hargrove. Not my mother by blood, not ever. Though she had trained me for 17 years to feel guilty for noticing. My real mother, Mary Ann, had died when I was 12, taking the warmth of the house with her and leaving Eleanor to decorate the silence with rules. "I'll be down in 20 minutes, I said. My voice was steady. Being dead, apparently, had improved my composure. Before we return to the story, I just want to share a quick note. This version is made for YouTube, but the extended, very hot, and uncensored Reborn romance stories will be available on my Patreon. Some scenes go deeper into desire, passion, and the private moments between the characters, and those parts are too bold to include here. If you want the fuller and hotter version, you can find the details in the description below. I looked at myself in the mirror. 29. Not yet hollowed by poverty, not yet shaved down by fever. My hair was thick and dark over one shoulder. My eyes were clear. My face still belonged to a woman who had not yet been publicly disgraced, disinherited, abandoned by her fiancé, and left to die in a ward where the curtains smelled of bleach. I touched the pulse at my throat. "Not this time," I whispered. The old Rosalind would have run to my father and begged him to believe the future. She would have cried, warned, loved loudly, and been dismissed before Eleanor finished her tea. The old Rosalind believed truth was strongest when spoken quickly. The old Rosalind died while her sister wore her brooch. I chose a dove gray dress, pearl earrings, and a smile gentle enough to look harmless. I would let them do it, not because I forgave them, not because I was weak, because revenge, if it was to last, required patience. Anyone could break a vase in anger. It took another sort of woman to let the crack travel unseen until the whole thing collapsed in someone else's hands. Breakfast was served in the morning room because Eleanor considered the dining room too formal for family and the kitchen too honest. My father sat near the window with Earl Grey cooling beside his plate. At 70, Arthur Hargrove looked almost translucent. He looked up when I entered. "There you are, Rosalind." My name in his voice hurt more than I expected. "Good morning, Father?" I kissed his cheek. He smelled of bergamot soap and medicine. "Happy birthday weekend." "Not yet," he said. "Do not age me before the guests arrive." "You turned 70 the moment the florists began arguing over hydrangeas." He laughed, then coughed into his napkin. Eleanor's eyes flicked toward him, not with tenderness but calculation, as if even his breathing had become a scheduling concern. Eleanor sat at the head of the table in ivory silk, her blonde hair arranged with merciless smoothness. Celeste sat beside her in pale pink, golden-haired, blue-eyed, beautiful in the way strangers found forgiving. She looked up from her fruit and smiled. "You look tired, Rosie." She was the only person who called me Rosie after I asked her not to. Every family had traditions. "I slept strangely," I said. "What did you dream?" I thought of a hospital television, of her laughter, of the sapphire brooch. "I dreamed," I said, "that people eventually become what they are." Her smile faltered. Dominic Ashford arrived before she could answer. He came in wearing charm like a tailored jacket, dark hair slightly damp from the rain, gray eyes bright, the faint dimple in his left cheek appearing as he smiled at me. In my first life, I had mistaken that dimple for kindness. It was only a dent. "My fiancé is terrifying before coffee," he said, kissing my cheek. His hand settled at the small of my back. Across the table, Celeste lowered her eyes too quickly. A small detail, a devastating one. I had missed it the first time because I had been busy being loved. Eleanor began speaking of the weekend schedule. Marcus Webb, my father's private lawyer, would arrive before lunch. Several board members from the Hargrove Legacy Trust would attend tea. Trustees would stay for dinner. The words sounded practical, but I heard the machinery beneath them. This was not merely a birthday celebration. It was the first stage of my execution. I ate toast. I smiled. I let Dominic's knee brush mine beneath the table. I watched Celeste watch him. I watched Eleanor watch my father. I watched my father rub his thumb over the handle of his teacup, a habit he had when tired, and felt grief rise under my ribs like water behind a locked door. Marcus Webb arrived at 11. He was tall, silver-haired, and precise, with the restrained sorrow of a lawyer who had seen too many families become creative around death. I found him in the library. "Mr. Webb," I said. "Miss Hargrove, you look well." "Polite of you to sound surprised." His mouth twitched. "I hoped I might make an appointment next week," I said. "Personal estate planning." "At 29? I'm a Hargrove. We plan for death before lunch." He studied me. "Call my office Monday." "Thank you." As I turned, I saw Dominic in the hall with Celeste. He leaned close. She laughed softly. Their hands did not touch, which somehow made the distance between them more intimate. Celeste saw me first. Surprise flashed, then fear, then sweetness poured over both. "Rosie," she said, "Dominic was just telling me about the champagne." "How moving for all involved." Dominic straightened. "Rosalind." I touched his sleeve lightly. "Eleanor is looking for you." She was not. He went anyway. Celeste and I stood beneath our grandfather's portrait, a man who had built half the family fortune by smiling at people while buying the land under their feet. "You seem different," she said. "I told you. Strange dreams. Good ones? Educational ones." The birthday dinner glittered with the quiet arrogance of old money. Crystal caught candlelight. White roses climbed silver stands. My father sat beneath the chandelier, trying not to look tired. Eleanor placed me beside him because Arthur asked for it. I watched her dislike that. During the second course, she said, "You were always your father's shadow, Rosalind, even as a child." My mother encouraged curiosity. "Yes," Eleanor said. Marianne was very emotional. For years, I had let her edit my mother with words like emotional, delicate, impractical, turning warmth into weakness one dinner at a time. My father looked down at his plate. I touched his wrist. "Do you remember how Mother used to hide lemon biscuits in the blue vase in your study because she said no one would dare search Chinese porcelain for contraband?" Arthur's face changed. The years slipped. He smiled truly. "She thought herself clever," he said. "She was clever. You only found them when she wanted you to." "I found them twice." "She let you find them twice." He laughed, and Celeste dropped her fork. It was only a memory, a biscuit in a vase, but I saw Eleanor register it as danger. Good. The weekend passed in silken knives. Eleanor introduced small doubts in private conversations. Rosalind was passionate, perhaps too passionate. Rosalind worked too hard. Generous hearts sometimes made careless hands. Celeste expressed concern. Dominic suggested I might enjoy a lighter role after marriage. None of them accused me. Not yet. They only loosened the soil around my roots. I let them. On Sunday, after the guests left and crushed rose petals littered the lawn, I found my father in the rose garden. He stood near the stone bench where my mother used to sit, one hand on his cane. "You shouldn't be out here alone," I said. I wanted quiet. I joined him. For a while we watched rain collect on the roses. "You reminded me of your mother last night," he said. "The biscuits. I had forgotten." "No," I said. "You had been encouraged not to remember." He glanced at me. "Eleanor finds grief untidy." "That is not fair." "Probably not." The honesty sat between us, sharp but clean. "I have not always done right by you," he said. The old me would have rushed to comfort him. This time, I let silence answer first. "No," I said. "You haven't." He closed his eyes. "But you are still here," I added. "So am I." His breath left him unevenly. "Will you walk with me this week? In the evenings, perhaps?" "I'll come." It was strategy. It was also love. That was the problem with family. The knife and the wound often had the same face. On Monday, I visited Marcus Webb in London. His office smelled of leather and expensive discretion. I told him I wanted to understand my legal position if hypothetical reputational concerns arose around the foundation. He did not insult me by pretending not to understand. "I cannot disclose privileged communications," he said carefully, "but if you have concerns, preserve everything: personal financial records, foundation approvals, account access logs, independent backups, confirmation wrapped in ethics." "Thank you." "Rosalind," he said, dropping the professional distance for the first time, "if someone is trying to hurt you, waiting may not be wise." "I'm not waiting," I said. "I'm letting them walk far enough into the room that they can't pretend they entered by mistake." 2 days later, I contacted Priya Nair. Priya and I had known each other at university, before life separated people into family obligation and women who actually liked you. She had become a financial forensic investigator with a reputation for finding fraud in places where respectable men insisted only clerical errors lived. We met in a quiet wine bar near King's Cross. She wore a navy suit and the expression of someone who billed by the hour but judged for free. "Rosalind Hargrove," she said, "either you need an investigator or you've finally come to confess you're in love with me. In another life, perhaps." "That sounds ominous and flattering." I gave her the outline without the impossible parts. Someone inside my family was preparing to fabricate an embezzlement trail through the Hargrove Legacy Trust. Likely shell accounts, possibly altered approvals. Possibly a third-party accounting firm. I needed her to review my records, find vulnerabilities, and do it invisibly. Priya listened without interrupting. When I finished, she removed her glasses. Your stepmother? Yes. Your sister? Yes. Your fiancé? Likely. Lovely. Nothing says family like conspiracy. We set up an encrypted account that night. Priya gave me instructions with the severity of a surgeon. No family devices, no estate Wi-Fi. Preserve originals. Trust fewer people than felt polite. Are you frightened? She asked outside, beneath the wet neon glow of a pharmacy sign. Yes, I said. But not of them. Then what? That I'll enjoy this too much, Priya smiled. Try not to enjoy it before invoice 2. It makes clients reckless. The months that followed taught me performance. I attended foundation meetings, answered Eleanor's emails with courtesy, let Celeste borrow earrings, and allowed Dominic to kiss me in restaurants while his attention drifted elsewhere. At night, I built my second life. I copied files. I reviewed every approval I had given. I liquidated personal investments left by my mother and bought a discreet city apartment under a holding company. Priya mapped the foundation's external accounting ties. A shell entity appeared first as a rumor in a ledger, then as a registration number, then as a door with no office behind it. Viridian Advisory, Priya told me over the encrypted line. No staff, no history. Registered above a closed dry cleaner in Leeds. Very glamorous. Has money moved? Not yet, but pathways are prepared. Someone is building a trail to your access credentials. Can you trace who? Not fully, but someone using a device registered to Celeste accessed documents she has no reason to touch. Celeste was always curious. Rosalind, yes? I'm going to enjoy invoice 2. Through autumn and winter, I walked with my father twice a week. I brought Earl Grey from the tea shop he liked, but pretended was no better than the estate blend. We moved slowly around the lake, his cane tapping gravel. He told me stories Eleanor had buried. My mother swearing at a duke during their wedding breakfast, hiding biscuits in porcelain, insisting money was useful only when it made room for kindness. Sometimes warmth hurt more than cruelty. Cruelty confirmed the world. Warmth suggested what could have been saved. One evening, as fog lay low over the lake, he said, Celeste thinks you dislike her. I don't dislike Celeste. That was true. Dislike was too small and clean. She has always felt compared to you. She was never compared unfavorably by anyone who mattered to her. She lost her father young, he said. So she decided my life was excess? He stopped walking. Is that what you think? I think Celeste was taught that being loved means being chosen over someone else. That makes her dangerous. She is your sister. Yes, I said. That is the tragedy, not the defense. After that, he watched her more carefully. Dominic watched me too. He noticed my quietness first. Men like Dominic tolerate sadness in women. Indifference offends them. You've been distant, he said after a charity dinner, rain needling the pavement around us. I've been busy. This is different. Did I do something? In another life, yes. You held my hands and told me you could not stand beside a woman who betrayed her own family. Then you escorted my sister to the opera before my name had even finished drying on the paper that erased it. No, I said. Not yet. He frowned. What does that mean? It means I'm tired. He reached for my hand. I let him take it and felt nothing. Not even disgust. Disgust requires intimacy. I love you, Rosalind. Across the street, Celeste stepped from beneath an awning. His eyes flicked to her and back. I know, I said. It was the cruelest answer I could give because it sounded like mercy. In January, Marcus summoned me. Rain turned London into a city of reflections. He did not waste time. Your stepmother's counsel has made informal inquiries about procedures for removing a family member from certain private records in the event of criminal or reputational harm. I folded my hands. She did not name you, he said. She did not need to. Thank you for telling me. If you have evidence, Rosalind, now is the time. There will be. When? When they believe it's too late for me to survive it? As I left his office, I found Elliot Crane in the reception area. He had been my father's financial advisor for years, a quiet man in his late 30s, with thoughtful brown eyes. In my first life, he had been a background figure. Courteous, steady. Someone I once caught looking at me with an expression I was too tired to interpret. He stood when he saw me. "Miss Hargrove, you look cold." "It's January. That may be related." I smiled despite myself. He removed his dark wool scarf and held it out. Dominic would have made a performance of rescuing me. Elliot simply offered warmth and left me the dignity of refusal. I accepted. "Thank you." "If you ever need someone to review numbers without turning them into family politics," he said, "I'm available." Numbers are always family politics in my family. Then I can at least make the numbers behave. It was such a gentle, dry thing to say that my throat tightened unexpectedly. "Careful, Mr. Crane. Competence is dangerously attractive." Color rose along his cheekbones. "Then I'll try to be less obvious." For the first time since waking, I felt something that was not strategy, grief, or rage. Small, warm, inconvenient. By spring, Priya found the first forged document. A draft authorization, backdated but not submitted, bearing a digital signature that mimicked mine well enough to fool anyone who wanted to be fooled. It approved a consulting payment from the trust to Viridian Advisory. The upload had come through Bellwether and Kane, a third-party accounting firm under the credentials of a junior partner named Martin Sykes. "Can you approach him?" I asked. "Eventually, not yet. If we spook them, they pivot." So I did nothing, which is the most difficult thing to do when someone is sharpening a knife in front of you. My health became a private war. The illness that had killed me had already begun as fatigue and pain I once dismissed as stress. This time, I saw specialists under another name and began treatment early. The diagnosis was cruel, but it was no longer a death sentence. Hilda found out because Hilda always found out. She caught me pale in the service corridor one evening and marched me into the small sitting room off the kitchen. "You'll take soup first," she said. "I'm not hungry." "You'll take soup first." Hilda had been housekeeper at Hargrove House for 36 years and could make an archbishop apologize for muddy shoes. I ate. She sat opposite me, hands folded. "I don't know what's happening in this house, Miss Rosalind, but I know the difference between dust and dirt. Dust settles. Dirt is brought in." I looked at her. "If you need a door opened," she said, "you tell me." I reached across the table and touched her hand. "Thank you." She patted my fingers once. Finished the soup. The erasure came in August, exactly as it had before. Summer lay heavy over Hargrove House. Heat pressed against the windows of my father's study. I remembered every detail from my first life. The mahogany desk, the brass lamp, the portrait of my mother, the folder placed before my father like a loaded gun. Arthur sat behind the desk, pale and devastated. Eleanor stood by the fireplace. Celeste sat in the leather chair, eyes red with tears she had either summoned or scheduled. Dominic stood near the window, looking tragic and exquisitely uncomfortable. In my first life, I had cried before anyone finished speaking. This time, I closed the door behind me. "Father." Arthur flinched. Eleanor's voice was soft. "Sit down, Rosalind." "I prefer to stand." Arthur opened the folder with trembling fingers. "There are documents, transfers, authorizations, payments routed from the trust through consulting entities. Your signature appears." "I see." Dominic turned. "Is that all you have to say?" "No," I said. "But it's all I have to say to you." Arthur's eyes filled. "Tell me it isn't true." The room held its breath. Outside, a bee struck the window once, twice, stupid with sunlight. I walked to the desk and placed a sealed envelope on top of the folder. Cream paper, my father's name written in my hand. "Father, I know you believe what they've shown you. I'm not going to fight you today. But I need you to keep one thing. This. What is it? Put it in your private safe. Don't open it until I ask you to. Eleanor moved. Arthur, this is absurd. Please, I said. Arthur stared at me, then at the envelope. At last, he opened the hidden safe in the desk and locked it inside. Then, he signed the papers. The Hargrove family register was private, archaic, and powerful because everyone with money had agreed to pretend it was sacred. To be removed was to lose inheritance, standing, voting rights, symbolic blood. It was a declaration that you had become a stranger. His pen scratched across the page. Celeste cried harder. Eleanor exhaled. Dominic waited for a scene he could condemn. I gave him nothing. When it was done, my father whispered, I'm sorry. I walked around the desk, bent and kissed his cheek. I know. Then I picked up the suitcase waiting in the hall and walked out of Hargrove House. Dominic followed me to the front steps because men like Dominic enjoy private cruelty when they can dress it as duty. I can't marry you, he said. Yes, I don't think you understand. After what came out, I understand perfectly. He swallowed. I loved you. No, I said. You loved the version of me that made you feel honorable. Anger flashed beneath his grief costume. I removed his ring and placed it in his palm. It never suited my hand. Then I walked away without looking back. My apartment overlooked the river from a building with discreet security and neighbors who understood silence. In my first life, the day after my erasure, I woke in a cheap hotel with swollen eyes and frozen accounts. This time, I woke in my own bed, made coffee, and opened Priya's message. Congratulations on your public execution. Shall we begin the autopsy? I replied. Please be thorough. The invisible year began. To the world, I disappeared gracefully. Eleanor let rumors spread that I was resting, seeking treatment, learning accountability. Celeste made sad appearances in white dresses. Dominic was photographed leaving her townhouse twice in 1 week. By October, their engagement was announced in a society column so tasteful it deserved prosecution. No charges were filed against me. That was their first mistake. They wanted social death, not court scrutiny. Criminal proceedings would require evidence to breathe under lights. Priya and I gave the evidence oxygen. The forged approvals led to Bellwether and Kane, and then to Martin Sykes, recently promoted, recently indebted, recently foolish. Priya approached him through a dull compliance inquiry, then a sharper one, then a private meeting where she explained the difference between negligence and conspiracy. He chose cooperation. Betrayal, I learned, is often administrative. Martin signed a statement. Celeste had attended meetings under the guise of learning foundation work. Eleanor's consultant had suggested draft structures. Dominic had introduced a banking contact. Martin had uploaded documents using his credentials and looked away from signatures he suspected were false because rich families make young professionals stupid with proximity. Meanwhile, Hilda began opening the back gate for me. Arthur's health declined in November. The first night I visited secretly, he sat by the fire in the small library, thinner than I had ever seen him. When I entered, terror crossed his face as if he thought I was a ghost. Then he said my name. I knelt beside his chair. He reached for me with both hands and held my face. My girl, he whispered. I had prepared for anger. I had not prepared for being loved too late. Did you do it? He asked, voice breaking. No. He closed his eyes. I didn't want to believe it. But you did. Yes. The truth sat between us, ugly and necessary. Not tonight, I said. Tonight you're tired? I have been tired for years. I know. I visited weekly after that. Sometimes he slept through most of it, while I sat beside him and listened to the fire. Sometimes he spoke of my mother, of regret, of the strange cruelty of living long enough to understand your own cowardice. I did not absolve him. I also did not abandon him. Both things were true, and neither was clean. On the night of Celeste and Dominic's engagement party, I attended a gallery opening across the city in a deep burgundy dress Priya approved because it made me look expensive and morally ambiguous. A photographer caught me laughing beside Elliot Crane. The photo ran the next morning. Former Hargrove heiress Rosalind Hargrove, elegant and composed amid family tensions. Celeste called from a private number. "Are you trying to embarrass us?" she demanded. "By attending an art opening? By acting like nothing happened?" Something did happen. I bought a dress. "You always do this," she snapped. "Make everything sound ridiculous so no one can touch you." For the first time, I heard the rawness beneath her sweetness. My survival insulted the story she told herself about justice. "You touched me quite effectively," I said. "For a while." "You should have just admitted it," she whispered. There it was. She needed my confession because it would make her innocent. "I hope the ring fits," I said. "What?" "Dominic's ring. It never suited my hand." I ended the call. Elliot asked me to dinner in February so carefully that I almost missed it. We had crossed paths at Marcus's office after a meeting. Snow threatened the city. I had forgotten gloves. "There's a place around the corner with very good soup," he said. "Is that a professional recommendation?" "A human one. Dangerous territory." "Only if the soup disappoints." The restaurant was small and warm enough that no one looked at me twice. We spoke of books, markets, grief, and a kitchen table his father had built badly enough that every meal had a rhythm. "After he died," Elliot said, "my mother refused to replace it for 12 years. "Did you?" "No. I fixed the leg." Something about that answer entered me quietly and stayed. Outside, I slipped on the pavement. His hand caught my elbow. Not possessive. Just there. We stood too close for a breath. "You should drive carefully," he said. "You should stop being decent. It's disorienting." "I'll try, but I've had years of bad practice." I drove home with my heart behaving in ways I considered undisciplined. 6 weeks before Arthur's death, I asked Marcus to come to my apartment. Priya arrived with encrypted drives, a printed report, and the air of a woman prepared to ruin several dinners. Elliot came because the final will would require financial structures he understood, and because by then I trusted the quiet way he stood near difficult things without trying to own them. I laid everything on my dining table: Priya's forensic report, Martin Sykes' statement, metadata from Celeste's assistant's laptop, access logs from Eleanor's study, Dominic's banking connection, the full architecture of the lie. Marcus read in silence. When he removed his glasses, he looked older. I should have pushed harder. "You had doubts?" I said. "Doubts are not evidence." "No, but sometimes they are conscience asking for courage." Priya leaned back. "Lovely. Put that on a plaque. Then help us make sure they can't bury this." Marcus looked at me. "What do you want?" In my first life, wanting had become theoretical. I wanted medicine, warmth, a clean death. For Celeste's laughter to stop coming through the television. Now I had evidence, money, and people waiting for my instruction. "I want my father to know the truth before he dies," I said, "and I want his wishes protected from the people who used his illness as a weapon." Marcus nodded. "We go tomorrow." "No," I said. "Tonight." Hilda opened the back gate in the rain. Arthur was awake in his bedroom, propped against pillows, the bedside lamp turning his face gold and ruined. I sat beside him. "Father, I need you to listen all the way through." Then I told him. Not theatrically, not cruelly. I gave him dates, accounts, names, signatures, access logs. Priya explained the trail. Marcus explained the law. Elliot explained how the trust structures had been targeted. Arthur listened as confusion became denial, and denial became horror. "No," he whispered when Celeste's name appeared. "Yes," I said. "Eleanor?" "Yes." "Dominic?" "Yes." His hand shook violently on the blanket. I took it. "I signed," he said. "I signed your name away." "You were deceived." "I signed." "Yes." I am your father. Yes. I did not protect you. No. The room went silent. He lifted both hands to my face, I bent, and he held me as if he could keep me from vanishing. My child, he said. My poor, brave child. I cried then. Not beautifully. Not much. Enough that his thumbs touched the tears. I wanted you to believe me, I whispered. I should have. Yes. I loved you. I know. I failed you. I know that too. He wept without dignity. I let him. There was no dignity left in pretending pain had manners. When he could speak again, he turned to Marcus. Can it be undone? The register? Not privately tonight. With this evidence, a court order is possible. I may not have later. No, I said. But you have now. Something entered his face then. Not strength. The memory of it. Bring me paper, he said. It took 2 days. Doctors came. Independent witnesses came. The signing was recorded. Marcus drafted an airtight will and stored it in his firm's vault. Priya secured evidence copies. Hilda kept Eleanor away with scheduling lies, medication reminders, and the terrifying force of a woman who knew every secret staircase in the house. The new will left everything to me. The estate, shares, voting rights, trust interests, foundation chairmanship, every piece of the world they had tried to steal. Celeste received nothing. Not because Arthur hated her, but because he finally understood that love without consequence is permission. Eleanor received a modest stipend conditional upon non-interference, cooperation, and good behavior as defined by the foundation board I would chair. After the signing, I stayed beside my father. Dawn paled behind the curtains. I cannot ask you to forgive me. He said, no, but I will ask you to live here again one day if you can. This house was never hers, no matter how well she arranged the flowers. I don't know if I can. That is honest. I'll try. His eyes softened. Your mother would be proud of the woman you became. The words struck so hard I could not answer. 3 weeks later, Arthur died just before dawn. I was there. So was Hilda. Eleanor was asleep. Celeste was in London. Dominic was nowhere, which seemed appropriate. His breathing slowed while I held his hand. Spring air entered through the window, smelling of wet grass. Rosalind, he whispered, I'm here. The blue vase? I'll check it. He smiled faintly. Clever girl. Then he was gone. I kissed his forehead, closed his eyes, and went to his study. Inside the blue vase was a tin of lemon biscuits wrapped in tissue and a folded note in my father's hand. For Marianne, who taught me where to hide sweetness. For Rosalind, who found it again. I sat on the floor and cried until Hilda found me. She did not tell me to stop. She sat beside me, joints protesting, and put one arm around my shoulders. Your mother would have liked that, she said. I miss them both. I know, love. It was the first time anyone in that house had called me love in years. The will reading took place 12 days after the funeral at Marcus Webb's law office. Eleanor wanted it at Hargrove House, naturally. Control is easier on familiar carpets. Marcus refused. The gathering would occur in his conference room, with recording, witnesses, and no refreshments beyond water. I admired the cruelty of the water. No one invited me. I arrived 5 minutes late because timing is a language, and I was finally fluent. I wore black, but not morning black. A tailored dress, pearls, my mother's watch. Elliot met me in the hall. Are you ready? He asked. No. Good. Ready people are often delusional. Will you be in there? Yes. Then I'll have at least one decent man in the room. 2, he said. Marcus will be offended if excluded. Marcus is a lawyer. Decency is a conflict of interest. His smile warmed the hallway for one brief second. Then the door opened. Every head turned. Celeste sat in black silk, grief arranged beautifully over triumph. Dominic sat beside her, his hand near hers, but not touching. Eleanor sat at the head of the table as though ownership could be established by posture. Her lawyer had a pen poised over a notebook. Celeste saw me and went gray. "Rosalind," Eleanor said, "this is a private family matter." I took the empty chair opposite her. "Yes." Celeste's voice came thin. "Who told you?" "My father." Silence. Marcus cleared his throat. "Miss Hargrove is an interested party and has every right to attend." "She is no longer in the family register," Eleanor said. "No," Marcus replied. "She is not presently listed in the private register. That has no bearing on her status under the will. Presently." I almost smiled. The reading began. Legal language is often dull by design. That day, every clause landed like a stone. Arthur Reginald Hargrove, being of sound mind. Revocation of all prior wills. Acknowledgement that my removal from private family records had been procured by deception. All shares, properties, voting rights, trust interests, personal effects, archives, and estate assets to my beloved daughter, Rosalind Marianne Hargrove. Beloved daughter. For 3 years in another life, I had been told I was no one. Former daughter, former heir, former Hargrove. Now my father's voice, carried through Marcus, gave me back not only wealth, but my name. Celeste made a small sound. Marcus continued. Celeste received nothing. Not a share, not a ring, not a chair, not a photograph. Eleanor received only the conditional stipend. The foundation board would be reconstituted under my chairmanship. "Which board?" Eleanor asked. "The board chaired by Rosalind Hargrove upon probate," Marcus said. The room became so quiet, I heard pipes knock inside the wall. Celeste stood. "This is ridiculous." Dominic reached for her wrist. "Celeste." "No." She pulled away, tears bright with rage. "She can't just walk in after everything and take." "Take?" I asked. My voice was soft, but it cut through her. "You were gone," she said. "I was erased. You left. I was removed." "You always had everything," she snapped. "Father looked at you like you were the only person in the room. The trustees listened when you spoke. Dominic was yours because of course he was. Even your dead mother owned the walls." There she was, not a cartoon villain. A wounded, jealous woman who thought someone else's pain was proof of her poverty. "I did not make you unloved," I said. Her mouth trembled. "And stealing my life did not make it yours." She flinched. Eleanor rose, cold and magnificent. "This will be contested." Marcus looked almost bored. "You are entitled to attempt that." "My husband was ill. His capacity was independently assessed. He was manipulated. The execution was recorded." She turned to me. "You think you've won?" "No," I said. "I think Father finally spoke in a room where you could not interrupt him." Dominic said my name. I looked at him. He seemed smaller now. Not evil, not monstrous. Weak, which is sometimes worse, because weak people hand knives to others and act surprised by blood. "I didn't know," he said. "No," I replied. "You chose not to." He lowered his eyes. When the meeting ended, he paused beside me. "I'm sorry. In another life, those words would have been a feast." Now they were crumbs on a table I no longer approached. "I know," I said. Pain crossed his face. He recognized the echo of the day he left me. I was pleased by that. Not proud. Pleased. Eleanor was last to leave. At the door she turned. "You are more like me than you think." It was meant as a curse. "No," I said. "I learned from you. There's a difference." Afterward, my hands shook. I hated that. The body does not understand victory. It understands survival after danger and reacts as if the tiger may still be in the room. Elliot set a glass of water beside me. "Drink," he said. "You and Hilda should form a union. We have similar management philosophies." I drank. "You were magnificent," he said. "No, I was controlled. Control can be magnificent." I looked up at him. careful, always. That was the trouble with Elliot. He meant it. The aftermath came in filings, interviews, investigations, and the slow machinery of consequence. Priya's report went to the appropriate legal and regulatory bodies. Martin Sykes entered formal cooperation. Celeste faced investigation for fraud and document forgery. Eleanor was not immediately charged, which did not surprise me. Women like Eleanor rarely touch documents when they could touch the people who touched them. Dominic's family distanced itself with aristocratic speed. His engagement to Celeste ended mutually. I sent no flowers. The court restored my name to the family register in June. Marcus presented evidence. The judge, a woman with no patience for inherited theatrics, ordered correction of the record and noted that private tradition did not supersede law, evidence, or basic sense. Basic sense. I nearly applauded. When the corrected register arrived at Hargrove House, Hilda placed it on a silver tray. My name sat on the page in black ink. Rosalind Marianne Hargrove, not restored like a favor, corrected like a fact. I moved back into the estate at the end of summer. Eleanor retreated to a smaller property after discovering that conditional good behavior was difficult under my roof. Celeste lived in a serviced apartment while her lawyers taught her the difference between tears and defense. Dominic tried to contact me twice. I deleted both messages unread. Hargrove House breathed differently without Eleanor's orchids. Curtains were opened. My mother's portrait returned to the main hall. Lilies were replaced with garden roses. Staff laughed in corridors again. On my first morning fully returned, I walked into my father's study. The room smelled of beeswax, leather, and old paper. Sunlight crossed the mahogany desk. The blue vase stood on its shelf. I sat in Arthur's chair and placed both hands on the worn leather arms. For a moment, I saw him as he had been when I was small, pretending annoyance when I asked too many questions, sliding a biscuit across the desk. Then I saw him signing my erasure. Then weeping in his bed. Then dying with my name in his mouth. Love did not erase harm. Harm did not erase love. I was tired of stories that required one to destroy the other. Hilda entered with a tray. Earl Grey. Lemon biscuit. No question. I looked at her. "Your father liked it steeped 3 minutes," she said. "You like it 2.5, but pretend not to care." I do not pretend. You are a Hargrove. You pretend by breathing. I laughed. It surprised us both. She touched the back of the chair. "He would be glad." "I know. Do you?" I looked at the tea, amber and fragrant. "I'm trying." That counts. Elliot came to the estate often that autumn. At first, it was business. The trust had to be stabilized, the foundation board rebuilt, the investments reviewed. He explained risks without condescension and disagreed without trying to win. It was intoxicating, being treated as a mind rather than an ornament or obstacle. Then business became dinner because meetings ran late. Dinner became walks. Walks became conversations that drifted beyond safe subjects into books, grief, childhood, and fear. One evening, we walked beside the lake under a sky washed pink by sunset. He wore the dark scarf he had lent me months earlier. "You kept it," I said. "My scarf?" I returned it. "You did. And yet, here it is, shamelessly continuing its life. I'm attached to it. To wool? To moments." Warmth moved through me, slow and disarming. "Elliot." "Yes?" "Were you in love with me before all this?" He stopped walking. For a moment, only the lake moved. "I admired you," he said carefully. "That is not what I asked." "No?" he admitted. "It is not." I waited. "Yes," he said. "But you were engaged, and unhappy in a way you had not named yet. My feelings were not your burden." My chest tightened. "And now? Now you are still healing. My feelings are still not your burden." The restraint of it undid me more completely than any declaration could have. "What if I wanted them?" I asked. He looked at me then. Sunset warmed his eyes. Then I would ask whether you wanted them tonight because you're lonely or tomorrow because you're sure. That is an annoyingly responsible question. I dislike myself for it. I stepped closer. Ask me tomorrow. His breath changed. Rosalind, not because I'm lonely, I said, because when I was erased, you handed me warmth without asking for a performance. Because you make rooms feel less like trials. Because I am tired of men who want to be witnessed being good, and you are good when no one is looking. He lifted his hand slowly, giving me time to refuse, and touched my cheek. I can ask tomorrow, he said. Good. But I may kiss you tonight if you ask. A laugh escaped me. There he is. Hidden boldness. Very well hidden. I leaned in first. The kiss was quiet. No thunder, no orchestra. Just his hand warm against my cheek, the lake beside us, and a feeling inside me like a locked room opening after years without air. He kissed me as if wanting me and respecting me were not opposing forces. When we parted, I rested my forehead against his. I'm still difficult, I said. I was counting on it. Peace came in pieces small enough to distrust. It came when the foundation funded its first clinic under my chairmanship, providing early diagnostic care for people who could not afford to wait until illness became tragedy. I stood at the opening and thought of the ward where I had died. Some memorials are built without names. It came when I found my grandmother's sapphire brooch in the estate inventory. Celeste had worn a replica in that other life, perhaps because the real one had been locked away beyond her reach. The original lay in a velvet case, blue stones dark as evening. Will you wear it? Hilda asked. I touched the largest sapphire. For years, that brooch had been the symbol of everything stolen from me, but the stones were innocent. They had not laughed. They had not signed. They had not chosen. Not yet, I said. Maybe one day, Hilda replied. Christmas brought snow and a small dinner for the staff, a tradition my mother had loved, and Eleanor had ended because warmth made scheduling unpredictable. Priya insulted the canapes, then ate 7. Marcus complained about sentiment while accepting brandy. Elliot brought a package wrapped so badly it suggested sincerity or head injury. Inside was my mother's writing box, restored. I had mentioned it once, the cracked hinge, the water damage, the initials MH inside the lid. You fixed it, I said. I found someone who could. I hovered. My throat closed. I thought you might like somewhere to keep letters that deserve better than drawers, he said softly. I looked at him, this quiet man who noticed ruins and did not call them ruined. I love you, I said. The words came simply. No drama, just truth. Elliot went very still. Then his smile arrived slowly, like sunrise over a winter field. I love you too, he said. More than is convenient, but I'm learning to organize around it. I kissed him in the hall beneath my mother's portrait, while Priya whistled and Marcus muttered about professional boundaries. Hilda told them both to behave while looking happier than she had any right to. There were still hard mornings. Sometimes I woke convinced I was back in the hospital, my body checking whether it had been betrayed by time again. Sometimes I dreamed of Celeste laughing with the sapphire brooch. Sometimes I dreamed of my father signing. On those mornings, I did not pretend peace was permanent. I got up, I made coffee. I walked the grounds. I sat in my father's study and read the letter he had left me. My dearest Rosalind, if you are reading this, then I was not entirely too late, though I was late enough to deserve the weight of it. I believed evidence when I should have known my daughter. I allowed grief, illness, and the comfort of easy answers to make me cowardly. There is no legal instrument that can repair what I broke. There is only this, the truth, protected as best I could. The house, returned to the child who loved it, before others made it cold. And my love, flawed and insufficient, but always yours. Do not spend your life proving you deserved what should have been given freely. Live. Be difficult. Be happy in ways that inconvenience the people who mistook your patience for weakness. Your loving father, Arthur. I read it until the folds softened. Celeste wrote once through her solicitor. Her letter was full of resentment, dressed as apology. Eleanor had pressured her. Dominic had encouraged her. I could not understand what it was like to grow up second in a house worshipping a dead woman and her perfect daughter. I sat with the letter for a long time. Then I replied through Marcus with one sentence. Your pain was real. What you did with it was your choice. Eleanor never apologized. False remorse would have offended us both. Dominic sent flowers near New Year with a card that said, I think of you often. Hilda brought them to my office with the expression of a woman carrying a dead rat. What shall I do with these? Compost. Very good. On the first anniversary of Arthur's death, I woke before dawn. Elliot slept in the guest room he used when foundation dinners ran late, because we still moved at a pace that honored the frightened parts of me. The house was quiet. I made coffee and slipped outside. Mist lay over the grounds. The lawn rolled away in silver-green waves. The lake was pale beneath the morning sky. Hargrove House stood behind me, not as a fortress or a courtroom, but as a home with its windows beginning to catch light. I wrapped both hands around my cup. For a moment, I let myself remember the hospital ward, the thin blanket, the television mounted too high, Celeste's laugh beneath chandeliers, the knowledge that truth had arrived after my body had lost the strength to hold it. That woman had died alone. I closed my eyes. No, I whispered to the morning, not alone. Because I was there now. I was the hand reaching back through time. I was the witness. I was the daughter restored, the name returned, the woman who had let them erase her because she knew ink was not blood and paper was not truth. I had carried her pain home with me. I had set it down in the grass. The door opened softly behind me. Elliot's footsteps crossed the terrace. He did not speak until he stood beside me, because he had learned the shape of my silences. Coffee? He asked. I made only one cup. A devastating betrayal. You'll survive. History suggests survival is possible in this family. I smiled. He stood close enough that his sleeve brushed mine. Are you all right? He asked. I looked at the mist rising from the grounds, the house waking behind us, the day arriving without permission from the past. I think, I said slowly, I'm home. The word did not hurt. Elliot's hand found mine. I let him take it. The sun broke over the trees, turning the wet grass gold. Inside the house, Hilda would be judging the kitchen staff. Marcus would pretend he accepted lunch out of obligation, and Priya would arrive late with coffee stronger than medical advice. The world would continue being difficult and beautiful and occasionally absurd. I stood on my own land, beneath my own name, with my father's love no longer perfect, but finally honest, and my mother's memory no longer buried beneath another woman's flowers. I thought of the girl I had been, the woman who had died, and the woman who remained. Then I let the hospital go. If this story stayed with you, tell me honestly, what moment hit you hardest? The day Rosalind calmly walked out with one suitcase, the will reading where every stolen thing returned to her, or the quiet dawn when she finally let the past go? If you felt even a little of her pain, her patience, or her peace, please like and share this story so it can reach someone else who needs to believe that being erased is not the same as being gone.